Hello, good evening, everybody. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? How are you?
Fine, sir.
All right. Sorry that I came late for today's class. I had some setbacks to fix. That was why. I'm sorry.
Okay, sir.
We will not waste much of our time. We will go straight to what we have today. Are we together?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Two classes back. If you can remember, we talked about tissues and supporting system, and we did that only on the uh, animal sector or the animal part. We talked about tissues and supporting system, where we talked about, let's quickly do a very brief rundown of what we talked about on that day. I hope that is okay with us.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we talked about skeleton. We said skeleton is the major substance that is what found in organism, and it is responsible for the what, for the rigid framework that gives support, shape, and protection to part of what, of an organism. Can you still remember that?
Yes,
Huh?
sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
we talked about tissues
Two classes back.
and supporting system. So that was what we discussed in the last class, and then we talked largely on skeleton, and we said that skeleton is what, the rigid framework that gives what, it gives support, shape, protection to what, to organs of the organism. And then we went to talk about of the, okay, of the organism, and then we talked about the types of skeleton that we have. Types, we talked about the types. We said we have what, we have the exoskeleton. I hope you can still remember that. And
Yes, sir.
the exoskeleton is richly made of what, of something called the cortical, corticals that has what, corticals, I'm coming, corticals that has chitin. Can you remember that? And I said that chitin is what, proteinous substance, isn't it? It's a proteinous substance that gives what, hard, it is composed of hardened mineral salts like what, the phosphate and what, carbonates of calcium. Hmm? Chitin, which contains, okay, which is a proteinous substance. The chitin is a proteinous substance containing what, phosphates and what, and the carbonates of calcium. So that is what the chitin is richly what, made of. And then we went further to talk about molting or egg disease. I said that molting or egg disease is the process whereby what, the organism sheds off its old skin, giving room for a new skin or a newer skeletal system to supporting tissue to come out, so that the organism can have what we refer to as strengthening, elongation, increase in size. Are we together? Ecdysis or molting. That was what I said, that what is the process whereby the organism replaces the tissues with newer ones. Newer ones to give room for elongation or increase in size. Are we together? So that's what we refer to as what? As ecdysis or molting. Ecdysis or molting. Now, there is a particular hormone that is responsible for that. We said that hormone is called what? The hormone responsible for this is ecdysone. The hormone responsible for it is called what? Ecdysone. And then we went on to talk about the second type of skeleton, which is what? The endoskeleton. The what? The endoskeleton. And I said that the endoskeleton is what? Is the type of skeleton that is found in organisms that have what? Their own skeleton inside the body. Exoskeleton is found outside the body. This one is what? Outside. Are we together? While this one is found where? Inside the body. Are we together? And then in animals it is what? Made of cartilages and bones. And then we went further to talk about the types of cartilages that we have, and made us understand that cartilages are the first set of what? Supporting tissues that you find in what? In organisms. And it is richly found in what? In some pisces, like the cartilaginous species. Are we together? Are we together? Also we talked about hydroskeleton. Hydroskeleton, which is found in what? In fluid organisms. Hydroskeleton found in fluid organisms. When I say fluid organisms, I mean organisms that have what? Fluid content in them. Are we together? Organisms like what? Earthworm. Are we together? Organisms like earthworm, they have what? Fluid content. So because they have fluid content and they have an envelope, there is a what? There is a pressure that what? Operates inside what? Inside these organisms. So it is with the aid of the pressure that what? These organisms are able to what? To have their own shape, as well as what? Their form, and moving about from place to place. So that took us to talk about cartilages, and when we talked about the forms of the types of cartilages, we said that we have the hyaline cartilage. Types of cartilage. We have the what? One, we have hyaline cartilage. Please, I'm just trying to have a crash of the what? Of the last class, so we can get in line with what we have to talk about today. We have the second one, which is what? The fibrocartilage, and the third one is referred to as what? The elastic cartilage. So those are the three types of what? The three types of cartilages that we have. And then we talked about ossification. Ossification being the process of transformation, is the process of transformation of cartilages to bones in organisms. The process of transformation of cartilages to bones in organisms is what we refer to as what? As ossification. And then we talked about the bones as well. We talked about the functions of the skeleton as a whole. Functions. We talked about the functions of skeleton. Functions of skeleton, we said 1, it is for what? Movement or locomotion. 2, we talked about support. It is with the aid of the skeleton that we are able to stand upright, and it is with the skeleton that what we have the ability to what? Move about. Then protection. The skeleton gives protections to some internal organs of the body. It gives protection to internal organs of the body, preventing them from what? From colliding with one another, or from getting what? Into a rupture. Number 4, we have what? Production of RBC, production of red blood cell. We also have what? Respiratory movements, which is what brings about what? Our ability to breathe, to respire. And then bone cells, formation of what? Of bone cells. Bone cells, that is what brought about by the what? By the action of an hormone called what? Osteocalcin. That is the hormone that regulates what? It regulates glucose, blood glucose and fat deposits. Regulates blood glucose and fat deposits. So that is that about what we had in our last class. So today we will quickly be looking at the types of this skeleton that we have in the endoskeleton. We are basing our topic on what? The endoskeleton. So the mammalian skeleton can be classified into 2 parts. Mammalian skeleton classification of mammalian skeleton. Classification of mammalian skeleton. That is what we have today. Now, broadly, the mammalian skeleton is divided into 2. The first one is what we refer to as the what? The axial skeleton. The axial skeleton. And the second one is the what? Is the appendicular skeleton. So what do we refer to as what? The axial skeleton. The axial skeleton. This consists of, the axial skeleton consists of the skull, or it is also called the brain box, or we call it, in some textbooks, we call it cranium. Are we together? That's the bone of the head. We have what? It's called what? The brain box or the cranium. It also has what? The vertebral column. The vertebral column That's what the backbone. Please, vertebral column or backbone. It is in no time called uh, spinal cord. It is called what? Backbone or vertebral column. And then we have the what? The ribs and sternum. We have the ribs, and sternum. The ribs and sternum. The sternum is also called what? The breastbone. The breastbone. And the ribs and the sternum form what we refer to as the rib cage. The rib cage. So what we are saying is the axial skeleton consists of the skull or the brain box or cranium, the vertebral column, the ribs, as well as what? As well as the sternum, which forms what? The rib cage. The ribs and the sternum. The ribs, the vertebral column, and the sternum all form the what? The rib cage. So if we talk about the skull, we all know what the skull is. Am I correct? The skull. The skull. The skull the skull is what? The bone of the head responsible for protecting what? The brain. The bone of the head responsible for housing and protecting the brain. Without the action of the skull, it will not be possible for us to have our brain intact. So it is the function of the what? Of the skull. Now the skull has what? It has this what? 3 parts. The skull is divided into 3. One, it has the what? Like I said earlier on, and that is where it got the name from. The cranium or brain box. Now let me quickly say this. The head generally, including the jaw, the nasal bone, and all of them make up the skull. But there is a hollow compartment that carries the brain. That hollow compartment is what we refer to as the what? The brain box or the cranium. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good. So it is that hollow compartment that houses the what? That houses the brain itself, that is called what? The cranium or the brain box. And then we have other parts like the facial skeleton. I believe we know that our skull has some what? Has some flesh on it, isn't it? Are we together?
Yes.
Yes, those
Yes.
parts that houses the eyes, the nasal flesh, the ear, all of those parts, they make up the what? The facial skeleton. And then we have the jaw. We have the what? The jaw. This jaw is divided into 2. We have the what? That is the lower and upper. The lower and upper jaw, or it can also be referred to as what? The mandible and maxillae. Are we together?
Sir,
Yes?
sir, please, are you sharing your screen?
Can I what?
Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. I'm coming, please.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't seeing my screen. Sorry about that. Should I scroll up so you see what we
No
have
problem.
talked about? Hello?
Sir, we can hear you.
Should I scroll up so you see what we have talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's just quickly scroll back up. So this was just talking about the last discussion we had when we started talking about tissues and supporting system. We talked about the skeleton, then the types of skeleton, where we talked about the exoskeleton, as well as what? We talked about the exoskeleton, and then we went further to talk about the endoskeleton. Please, you can check your replay after now so we don't waste too much of our time. You can check your replay to get a download of what we have talked about. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So we also talked about the hydroskeleton that is found in fluid organisms. Then the types of skeleton, we listed them to be three: hyaline cartilage, fibrocartilage, elastic cartilage. And we said that the process of what? Of formation of bones from cartilages is what we refer to as what? As ossification. The process of what? Of transformation or turning of cartilages into bones. Please, not bones to cartilage, but what? Cartilage to bones is what we refer to as ossification. Then we talked about the types of, the functions of skeleton, where we talked about movement and locomotion, support, protection, production of red blood cell, respiration and respiratory movement, bone cells, which what produces a particular hormone called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is an hormone that is responsible for regulating blood glucose and what? And fat deposits. So that took us to talk about classification of mammalian skeleton. That is what we are discussing today. Classification of mammalian skeleton. And I said it is divided into two. We have the axial skeleton. We have what? The axial skeleton, as well as what? The appendicular skeleton. So we started talking about the axial skeleton. We said the axial skeleton is the type of skeleton that consists of the what? The skull, the vertebral column, the ribs, the sternum that forms the rib cage. And so we started talking about the skull. We said that the bone of the head is responsible for housing and protecting what? Majorly the brain. Though it also has what? Okay, let me not say the brain alone. Okay, the brain, the eyes, nose, etc., including the ear. So now we talked about the parts of the what? The parts of the brain, of the skull. So we listed them to be what? Three. We said the first one is what? The first one is the cranium or the cranial, or the brain box. Number two is the facial skeleton, and we said number three is what? Number three is the jaws, which we listed to be two. We have the lower jaw and the what? The upper jaw, or it could also be referred to as what? The mandible and the maxillae. Mandible and maxillae. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
All right, so talking about the vertebral column now. The vertebral column. So the vertebral column is made up of 5 different sets of bones. This consists of 5 different sets of bones. Number one, okay, let me make a table here. Let's make a table. So we talk about their location and their number. Are we together? So we have types of vertebrae. Are we together? And then we have location. We have location. We also have number. So let us quickly pick them one after the other. So the first one, we have in the neck, we have what? The cervical. The cervical, and the cervical is divided into two. We have the what? The atlas and the axis. Atlas and axis. They are both found in the what? In the neck. They are both found where? In the neck. The atlas is 2 in number, while the axis is 5 in number. Okay, let me do it this way so it doesn't get you confused. So this one is 2, while this one is 5. And then we have the next one, which is what? The thoracic. The thoracic. The thoracic is found in the chest region. Thoracic is found in the what? Chest region, and it has a total of 12. The third one is called the lumbar. The third one is called lumbar. And so the lumbar is found in the what? The upper abdomen. The upper abdomen, and it has what? A number of 5. And then we have the fourth one, which is what? The sacral. The sacral vertebrae, which has a number of what? It is found in the lower abdomen, and it also has a number of 5. And the fifth one, that is the caudal. Caudal is found in the what? In the tail, and it has 4. So if we look at this now, if we were to take the total, you find out that the total we'll be having is going to be what? The total we'll be having is going to be 33 what? Bones. So we have 33 in the human place. This one is for what? Number in what? Okay, let me do this. So we have this in what? This number that we have written here as that of what? The number of what? Of each of these vertebrae that is found in what? In humans, cervical in human and all of those. In the rats, we have them to be what? A total of 7. I mean the cervical is a total of 7, and in the rabbit it is also a total of 7. The thoracic region in the rat, it has what? 13. The thoracic region in the rat has what? A total of 13, while in the rabbit it is what? 12 to 13. And in the lumbar in the rat is just what? 6, while in the rabbit we have it to be what? Between 6 and 7. For the sacral in the rabbits, in the rat, the sacral in the rat, we have it to be what? 4. And in the rabbit, it is between 3 to 4. And then the tailbone in the rat is what? Between 27 to 30. And in the rabbit, it is what? 16. So if you look at it, you find out that their total here is going to be what? For the rats, we have it to be 57 to 60, and for the rabbit it is between what? 44 to 47. So that is what the number of, or the number and the types of vertebrae that we have in the mammalians look like. So each of these bones that we have made mention of, the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, caudal, they all have their characteristic features. Each of them have their characteristic features. So before we talk about those, let me quickly explain a few things about each of these bones. The cervical, I said it has 2 types of bones. We have the atlas and the axis. Now, the atlas is found directly under the skull. The atlas is found where? Directly under the skull. It is the first and the second bones of the vertebral column that carries or bears the position of the skull. It is on the first atlas that the skull rests or sits on. Are we together? Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So I wanted to know that you are following. So like I said, it is on the first the first bone of the neck, the first bone of the vertebral column, which is the first atlas, that the skull sits on, and it is responsible. The atlas, they are both responsible for the nodding that we have in our head. The reason why we can nod our heads, we can move our heads up and downwards, is as a result of the function of these particular bones called the cervical bone. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So we also have, I'm coming please. We also have the second bone, which is the second bone, which is the axis. The axis is the second bone. It is responsible. The axis is responsible for the movement of the head from left to right. The reason why we can move the head from left to right or from right to left is as a result of the function of that bone called the axis. Are we together? So quickly, somebody should tell me what is the function of the atlas and the function of the axis. Function of the atlas and the function of the axis. Quickly. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I said somebody should give me the function of the atlas and the function of the axis. Okay, let's
The
not.
axis is nothing of the earth.
The axis is what?
It's used in nothing of the earth.
No, that is the function of the atlas. The atlas helps in nodding, while the axis helps to move the neck from left to right. Is that clear?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Alright, then we have the what? The thoracic vertebrae that are found in the what? In the chest region. Now, this thoracic in humans, they have what? We have a total of 12. In the humans, we have a total of 12. Now, the 12 ribs, the thoracic, vertebrae. Okay, let me quickly. The thoracic now. I said is 12 in number. The thoracic is 12 in number. So the first 10, the first 10 are called the true ribs. They are called what? The true ribs. Because they what? Because they attach themselves to the backbone. They come from the backbone and they attach themselves to the sternum. That's the what? The breastbone in the chest. And so they are called what? The true ribs. While the last two, are called, they are called the false ribs or floating ribs. The last two are called what? The false ribs or the floating ribs. So that is what we have what for the thoracic. The 10 of them, the first 10, all the 12 bones are attached to the what? To the backbone. They all emanate or come out from the backbone. But the first 10 come to the front and attach themselves to the sternum, while the last two do not attach themselves to the sternum, and so they are called or referred to as the floating ribs. And then we have the lumbar vertebrae that is found in the what? In the upper abdomen, then the sacral, which is found in the what? The lower abdomen, and then we have the caudal. The caudal make up the tail bone. The caudal make up what? The tail bone. So it is as a result of the function of the what? The caudal bone that we have insignificant bone in the case of the what? Of the animals. We say we have what? We have insignificant bones. For the caudal, that is what I mean. So that is that about the types of ribs that we have. Are we together? The types of bones that we have on our what? Vertebral column. And then the ribs now. The ribs. The ribs. We have made mention of them. That is where the what? The thoracic bones emanate from. Are we together? And so the ribs with the backbone and the sternum all join together to form the what? The rib cage. The ribs coming from the back attaching themselves to the sternum forms the rib cage. Attaching themselves to the what? Sternum forms the rib cage. The function of the ribs now. Functions. Functions of the ribs. Function of the ribs. One, protect the heart and the lungs. Protect internal organs like the heart and lungs. Two, rhythmic movements of the thoracic cavity. Brings about or aid respiration. Or aid respiration. So these are the functions of the what? Of the ribs. They help in what? Protecting internal organs of the body, internal organs like the heart, the lungs. Also, rhythmic movement of the thoracic cavity that brings about or aid what? Respiration. Are we together? And then that takes us to talk about the appendicular skeleton. We have just finished discussing the axial skeleton, so we'll go to discuss what the appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton talks about the girdles. The appendicular skeleton talks about the girdles. Are we together? So that is what we'll be looking at right about now. What does appendicular skeleton mean? So I said it talks about this discusses the girdles, and they are two. In number, there are two in number. One, we have the what? We have the pectoral. The pectoral girdle. This pectoral girdle consists of the pectoral girdle consists of a large flat bone on the back, large flat bone on the back of the back called the scapula, or the shoulder blade. The scapula or the shoulder blade. It also has what? Another one called the clavicle. The clavicle, which is also called the collar bone. And then it has the coracoid process. I think we treated a question some days ago that was talking about this, the coracoid process. So those are the parts of the what? The pectoral girdle. The flat bone called the what? The scapula. The bone in the neck called the clavicle, and then the coracoid process. And those ones are found in the upper arm. And then we have the other girdle called what? The pelvic. The pelvic girdle. So what do we refer to, or what do we mean by the pelvic girdle? The pelvic girdle consists of three bones fused together. consists of 3 bones fused together. They are: 1, we have the anterior pubis. We have the anterior pubis. 2, we have the what? The posterior ischium. The posterior ischium. And 3, we have the what? The obturator foramen. So these are the parts of the what? The bones of the pelvic girdle that are fused together. One is the anterior pubis, the what? The posterior ischium, as well as the last one, which is what? Which is the obturator foramen. Are we together? So those are the 3 that we have there that make up the pelvic girdle. Now, we need to understand here that there is something called the left and the right halves of these girdles. The left and the right halves of the what? The girdle. The left and right halves of the girdle. Now, these 2 parts, they are joined together by a particular substance. That thing is called what? The pubic. They are joined at the pubic symphysis. They are joined together at the what? At the pubic symphysis. That is where we have what? We have the bones of the what? The left and the right halves of the pelvic girdle joining together. Now, the lower pelvic girdle, the bone of the leg of that the lower limb, that is the femur. The head of the hind limb, the head of the hind limb, the head of the hind limb or the femur fits the head of the hind limb or the femur fits into a particular hollow, into a particular what? It fits into a hollow which is called, this hollow is called the acetabulum. The holo is called what? The acetabulum. That is what the holo is called. So it is in the acetabulum that we have the what? We have the head of the femur fitting into the pelvic girdle. So the head of the femur fits into a bracket. It is like the ball and socket joint of the eye. So it fits into that socket, that joint, which is called what? The acetabulum. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so like we were saying, in the limbs, we have several digits. The limbs have what? Several digits. Let's quickly talk about the upper limbs, then we'll talk about the lower limbs. The upper limbs. The upper limbs. When I talk about the upper limbs, I'm talking about the hand, as the case might be for animals. Are we together? So the first bone that fits into our shoulder, the first bone that fits into our shoulder is called the what? The bone that fits into our shoulder or into the shoulders is called the the humerus. It's called the humerus. Now, the humerus is attached the humerus is attached the humerus is attached to two other bones called the ulna, called the ulna and radius. They are attached to the ulna and what? And radius. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So the ulna and the radius. That is what we have what the bones being attached to. The bones of the humerus. They are attached to the ulna and the radius. And then under the ulna and the radius, we have what we refer to as what? The carpals. Please, I'm coming. So like I was saying, the ulna and the radius. Under the ulna and the radius, under these bones, we have the carpals. That is the wrist. That is where we have what? The carpals, the wrist or the wrist bone. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
The wrist or the wrist bone. And then under the wrist bone we have the what? The metacarpals. Under the carpals we have the metacarpals, which makes up the palm. The bones in the palm, they make up the what? The palm bones. And then the phalanges. The phalanges are attached to the phalanges. Okay, let me put it this way. The phalanges that is the fingers, are attached to the metacarpals. So that is what happens in the upper limb. We have the what? The bones of the upper limb being attached to the what? The first thing that happens there in the shoulder, we have the what? The bone called the humerus fitting into the what? The shoulder. And then under the humerus, we have two bones called, you can touch them. Under that, we have two bones called the ulna and the radius. And under the ulna and the radius is where we have the what? The carpals called the wrist bone. After that, we have the metacarpals called the metacarpals are the bones that make up the palms. And then we have the phalanges. The phalanges are also referred to as the what? As the fingers. Are we together? That is what happens in the upper limbs. And then in the lower limb now, in the lower limbs, in the lower limbs, that is the leg. The lower limbs or the leg, the bone there, the bone that fits the bone that fits into the shoulder is called the what? The femur. The bone that fits into the shoulder is called the femur. Now, the femur has two bones the femur has two bones attached to it. These are one, we have the tibia, and the second one is what? Fibula. The first one is tibia and the other one is fibula. These two bones are attached to the ankle called, or the ankle bones called the metatarsals. They are what? Attached to the ankle bones called the metatarsals. And then the metatarsals are attached the ankle bones are called the tarsals, not metatarsals, please. The ankle bones, they are called the tarsals, and then the tarsals are attached to the what? The metatarsals. So like I was saying, the tarsals are attached to they are attached to the metatarsals. This makes this make up the what? The bones of our legs, the bones of our feet, and then they lead to the the phalanges. The phalanges also known as what? The phalanges also known as the finger, the toenails. The ones in the finger and the hand, they are the what? The phalanges in the what? In the hand, they are also called phalanges, and the ones in the legs, they are referred to as what? Phalanges as well. Those are the toes. So those are the what? The supporting tissues in what? In animals. I believe we got something from what we discussed today. I will be waiting. If there's anybody that has any question, you can drop it in the group, or let me give you about 2 minutes to ask your questions. Does anybody have any question for me? Any question at all? Does anybody have any question for me? Omotunde, Maria, Morenikeji, Wampa, do you have any question for me?
No, sir.
Okay, in the absence of any question, I think we'll be calling it a day here today, and we'll be meeting when next we see. So thank you very much. We'll see some other time.